Have you been practicing your instrument for weeks, months, maybe even years, and yet you feel like you're not really making progress? Well, first of all, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. A lot of beginner musicians feel stuck because usually they're focusing on the wrong things, and usually they don't have someone to guide them properly so that they get to their destination quickly. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the common traps that musicians fall into which inhibit their progress, and I'm also going to show you several steps that you can take so that you start making progress in your practice today. So one of the reasons that beginners get stuck is because of mindless repetition and mindless playing. So sometimes we think by just playing a song over and over and over, it's just miraculously going to get better. So maybe you're interested in jazz and maybe you're working on a song like Green Dolphin Street. So you might get your instrument and then start playing. So as cool as that might sound to you, maybe in your practice session, you could do this for hours, you could do this for days. But if that's all you're ever doing, you're not necessarily going to get better at anything in Green Dolphin Street necessarily. So I would rather you take what I like to call a target approach, and I cover some of this in this video here, so please feel free to check that out. But I'll talk a little bit more about how we can remedy this problem a little bit later in this video. So let's go to another reason why people don't really make progress or as much progress as they need, and that is relying too heavily on your sheet music. Okay, so as important as it is to read, I'm a huge believer and a huge fan of reading music because that's a very useful skill. But what you don't want to do is to rely too much on that music, because that can be limiting in some regards and in some situations. So again, we'll talk about the remedy to this problem, but it is definitely one reason why some musicians stay stuck for too long, because unless your reading improves, then you're probably only going to read things at a certain level, and only when you get better at reading do you start playing music or pieces at a higher level. And then because musicians are different, right? There's some people who maybe your ears are well ahead of your eyes in terms of development. If all you're doing is relying on that, you're probably going to get frustrated because in your head you're hearing a lot of things that you could be playing, but the music is limiting you, so you're stuck at that level for quite a while. A lot of musicians are afraid of sounding bad, so particularly adult students, because they already know how the music's supposed to sound. Teenagers sometimes are very self-conscious as well. You don't want to appear like a fool in front of others, and that mindset right there can really inhibit your growth. So sometimes, because people don't want to sound bad and maybe they want to sound cool, you might play or be focusing on music that's way ahead of where you should really be. So maybe you're thinking, can I really be playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? That's a beginner song or a childish song. But you know what? Sometimes that's the level that you're at, and sometimes you just have to admit that and enjoy and embrace where you are, knowing full well that if you continue to take the appropriate steps, you're going to get closer to your destination. So sometimes you just want to make sure that you put your own ego aside and just do what you're supposed to do and trust the process, and most importantly, just enjoy the process. when it comes to things like improvising, a fear for most people is, again, really just, does it sound good? So I might say to you, okay, if you're a beginner, just play maybe some black notes on the piano with me, you know. So I've just created that. And to my ears, that actually sounds cool. But someone maybe is thinking, I want to be playing. You know, they already want to play some cool right hand runs, but also at the same time, can I play something in the left hand just so that it sounds cool? And that can inhibit your growth. So again, just be willing to break things down. If all you can do for now is just one hand, go for it. And the time will come where you are competent enough to play hands together. You're competent enough to play styles that you can manage and music that's at a level that you can manage. Okay, so just enjoy the process and don't really worry about what people think, because people are full of opinions and people will tell you what they like and dislike. If you really want to make progress, the only person whose opinion really, really counts is your opinion. So if you tell yourself, I'm happy with this, then that's all that really matters. Okay. Because sometimes people can tell you you're amazing and maybe you're not, you know. So you really want to trust yourself. You know, sometimes they'll tell you you're terrible, but I mean, it's your journey, you know. Usually the people that tell you that, maybe they don't even play an instrument themselves. So why should you be listening to those guys? You know, you enjoy what you're doing, and we don't all have to be Beethovens. Some people have to be Owens, and you are allowed to be you at your level, and you'll continue to grow, and that's really what matters. So just enjoy the process, enjoy your journey. Okay. Another reason beginners don't really make as much progress as they should is they don't really have clear goals. So they don't even know where they really want to go. So someone might just say, I want to improve. But that's like you getting into a car and saying, I want to go. Okay, where are you going? So you've got to have some sort of idea of what you're trying to achieve. So your goal could be, okay, maybe I want to play in church. Maybe I want to play in the jazz band. Maybe I want to play in the orchestra. So at least you've got to have a destination that you are targeting. And then you now have to work your way backwards to see, okay, what are the important things that I need to learn in order for me to go there? Okay, what's the route that I have to take that will take me there? So without a clear vision, you're basically going nowhere. You could be stuck in the same place. So again, we'll talk about some steps that you could take or how you can identify a specific goal. But in music, there are so many goals. And that's why I keep saying everyone's got their own journey, because the destinations for each person are different, you know. So you don't want to be going there and there and there and there, or going where your friend's going, or where your teachers told you to go. You've got to figure out where you want to go. Once you figure that out, every step that you're taking is now leading you closer to your destination. The final reason which I'll share about why beginners stay stuck is this idea of one-dimensional thinking. So some people believe in only one way of doing things. So you might say, I'm going to limit myself, so I am never going to learn how to read music, for instance, and I'm just going to play by ear. So that's a one-dimensional approach. Or you might be the complete opposite and say, I will only play what's written, and I'm not really going to bother practicing listening or playing by ear. Or you might say, I only play classical music, or I only play jazz, or I only play church music, or I only play reggae. And that's really one-dimensional approach. One thing that can make you improve faster is in you trying to become a well-rounded musician. So think of it like this. If you went to the gym and the only thing that you worked on were your biceps and nothing else, that might be a very interesting result. Okay, probably not too good for your body either. So you want to make sure that you work on different muscles so that you as a person become stronger, you become fitter, you become more complete. So when it comes to music, you want to make sure that you're working, yes, on your reading. Yes, you want to be working on playing by ear. You want to be working on your creativity. So that means your improvisation, your composition, so that when you've got all these skills, you are actually a complete musician, regardless of what style of music you enjoy and what destination you've got. The more open-minded you are, the more opportunities you give yourselves to grow as a musician. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the remedies to the problems that I've mentioned. One idea I would suggest is intentional practice as opposed to repetitive practice. So if I go back to my Green Dolphin Street example, instead of just jamming on my instrument, I could ask myself, well, what's one thing that I would like to see improvement on while I play this song? And for this example, I'm going to pick motivic development. So a motive is a musical idea. So I'm going to come up with some short musical ideas, and then I'm just going to play around with them. Maybe I'll develop them, I'll extend them. Maybe I might flip the idea around. I'm just basically playing with it and seeing where I could go with this. So I might start with 1, 2, 3, 4. Simple idea. I'm going to develop it. There we go. And so forth and so forth. So I'm working on this one idea, and by working on this one idea, I'm almost guaranteed to get better at that one thing. So the idea of motivic development is probably going to improve. So that's much better than just jamming on a song and hoping for the best. If I were playing a piece of written music, I might just go to the problem area, isolate it, quarantine it, make sure it's better, and then put it back into the piece, rather than going from measure 1 to the end. Okay, so intentional practice as opposed to just playing, mindless playing. When you repeat something, it's also quite important to ask yourself, why am I repeating it? What am I listening for now? So if I'm playing it the second time round, what is it that I want to get better? Is it that I want my left hand to be a little softer than the right hand so that the melody comes out? Okay, so that's intentional. Am I working, like, do I want to play that maybe a little slower? So that's intentional. You know, do I want to play the notes correctly? Okay, how am I going to do it the second time around so that it's not the same as the first time? And the more intentional you are, the more progress you're going to make in that particular area. Okay, let's go to solution number 2. So start thinking like a musician. So instead of just playing the sheet music, ask yourself, well, what key am I playing in? What is the chord progression that I'm playing? Does this melodic idea come back at some point? What is the form of this piece? Is it starting with an A section, and is the A section being played again, and maybe it goes to B? So what's the form of the piece? So like I said, what key is it in? Does the key change at any point? what are the intervals that I'm playing? So even in the melody, well, all these notes, I mean, what are they? Because they could simply be arpeggios. You know, you might be playing. In fact, I think it's up here. So, hang on a second. As a musician, that's a C major chord, okay? Instead of just seeing a whole bunch of notes, you want to start really thinking like a musician. And the more you do that, the more transferable this information is going to be to other pieces. You might find yourself learning songs faster. You might find yourself incorporating things from several songs into your own playing. Okay, so for instance, I remember when I was a child and I learned Fur Release. Just from that first bar, that first measure was so important for my playing of pop music, for my playing of church music, because anything I play, I could always incorporate that into my left hand. So if I was playing an A minor chord, so I could play that same idea but apply it to other songs. Okay, so that's quite important to think like a musician so that this information is transferable and making you a better musician. Because actually, why learn a piece if you're never going to use that information? So if all you ever do is play that piece, I don't think that's getting the maximum output from that. It's kind of like reading a book. Why would you read a book? Unless you're actually going to use the information from the book, unless you're going to learn something maybe from the story in the book. You've really got to get hold of your mind and your ego, because these things will play tricks on you. So instead of you always judging yourself and thinking about what other people think about your playing, it's quite important for you to be happy with the process. And rather than be thinking of these people, what you actually need is just a practice framework where you're just going to focus on you. So one of the things that you could do, particularly if your ego is really playing tricks on you, you could actually just take time to be mindful before you practice. So a few minutes, maybe just in silence, and making sure every part of your body is relaxed, that your mind is clear. That could really help you, so that when you play, actually when you touch the instrument or make a sound, if you just made one sound, the real thing to do here is to tell yourself, wow, that's beautiful, because it is. You know, even if it's two notes like that, instead of reacting to it like, ooh, you might actually want to think to yourself, wow, I mean, what a fantastic sound. Because if I added even more notes to that, that sound is not as bad as maybe your mind was telling you earlier. Okay. So there's really no such thing as sounding bad. Everything is really just mindset. That's why certain people like Thelonious Monk, for instance, would play some things that would be considered wrong, but because of the attitude behind their playing, they would convince everyone that, ooh, actually that sounds amazing. And now you have people transcribing these solos and trying to figure out how he played all these wrong notes, because these wrong notes sound really nice. So mindfulness really helps, and just a complete adjustment of the mindset to you just embracing everything. But you might also want to just structure your practice so that, because your focus is on you and you really want to get better, so you might say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to work on things like my technique, because that's obviously going to make me better. Might want to work on some ear training, because again, that's going to make me better. I might want to work on my on my reading of music, because that's also going to make me better. Maybe it's just the theory of music that I want to learn, so you want to make sure that you cover all the fundamentals, trusting that those things will make you better. Okay, so don't worry about what people think. Just trust that the more of the fundamentals you continue covering, the better you're definitely becoming. Okay, and just have an open mind, open heart, and you'll find yourself improve in no time. It's also quite useful to have specific goals for your practice. Like in my earlier example, my specific goal was I want to get better at motivic development. Okay, so you don't necessarily want to have a vague goal like I want to get better. Okay, so what do I want to get better at? You might want to get better at incorporating a melody into your solo, for instance. Or you might want to get better at embellishing a melody. So once you set a specific goal, you can now start moving in that direction. Because without a goal, who knows where you're going to go. And again, suppose you want to play pop music. Well, the thing to start learning is pop music. If you want to learn your gospel music, well, start going in that direction. At least it's a specific goal. So, okay, gospel music. Which artists appeal to me? Whose music do I like? Okay, now you list those guys. Okay, which songs do I like by those artists? Okay, you've got those songs. Right, which one do I start with? And now you are definitely heading in that direction. As opposed to, I just want to get better. Okay, so specific goal will really help you to get to where you want to faster. Without a goal, you're either going to stay in the same place or just be going around in circles, really. Another thing that really helps you to improve is recording yourself. So I do this almost, well, not necessarily daily, but every week I'll make sure that I record myself. I like to record myself just to see if my playing is actually changing. So I might work on a particular topic maybe for 30 days. On day 1, I'm not going to hear any improvement at all. Sometimes even by day 10, I'm hearing no improvement. Day 15, there might be nothing. But usually around day 21, 22, I'm starting to feel that, hang on a second, I think I'm improving at this one particular thing. And although, especially when you're doing target practice, some areas might suffer temporarily, but that's fine. Because the thing that you're working on specifically, that thing is getting better. And then over time, all these things that you work on will come together. At least they all improve, which means you have improved. So when you record yourself, you can really hear some habits. So sometimes you'll hear things that you don't want in your playing. You're like, why do I do that? So now that you're aware of it, that's going to make you more conscious of it when you're practicing. And then you start getting rid of the bad things. But the good things, you also want to keep those things and consciously tell yourself, okay, in your practice, let me incorporate these things. And then overall, you'll start to see an improvement in your playing. So I myself have been stuck a number of times in my playing. So the things that I've suggested in these videos are things that have actually happened to me, and the solutions that I've recommended are things that also worked for me. So hopefully they work for you and that they help you. So if you've enjoyed the video, please leave me a thumbs up or a comment. If you've got any questions or things you'd like to discuss, please leave those in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. And feel free to share this video with others so that we can spread the gospel of developing musically. So I hope to see you guys in the next video, and continue practicing and enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. Okay.